Welcome one, welcome all to my podcast where I focus on your favourite athletes, past, present and future. This is Tokyo 1964. This is 2020 Vision. Hello and welcome to episode 13 of 2020 Vision. This is part one of a two-part series where we are focusing on the 1964 Olympics. That's right, the 1964 Olympics set in Tokyo. It took 54 years to bring the Olympics back to this beautiful city in Japan. So, let's take a step back in time. I was lucky enough to get in touch with several athletes that competed at these very games in 1964. On this week's episode, I have Trevor Vincent, who is an outstanding steeplechase and long-distance runner in his time. As well as that, I've spoken to Bob Lay, an outstanding sprinter. They both have amazing stories to tell, and I hope you very much enjoy what we chat about in the brief time that I had with these athletes. It was amazing to hear what it was like for them back in the day, and also how they were treated as athletes of the time. So here we have my first interview, which is with Bob Lay. Bob, thank you very much for joining me today on this episode, which is dedicated to the 1964 Olympics. Now, I'm correct in saying that you competed in those Olympics?
I did, that's correct.
Do you mind telling me what it was like for you over there, event-wise, as well as the people in general?
Well, it was my first trip overseas, and I was quite overawed by the fact that I was going to compete against the world's best. But, getting there and seeing them and even training in their same environment was an unbelievable experience. And the crowds in the stadium were just, the biggest I'd ever seen in my life. Okay, I'd been to rugby league grand finals, and apart from that, that was the biggest crowd I've ever competed against, or with, I should say, in front of. But it was a great experience for me to line up against the best sprinters in the world, and overall, I thought my performance was the best that I could do at that time.
And that's all you can expect when it comes to those events, because we do in a sense aim for that gold medal glory at the end. But what we think is that's only like a once in a 4-year opportunity for you to do something like that.
Well, it is. You train for that. I think every athlete aspires to be an Olympian and certainly make a final and go on and win a medal.
So you were a sprint.
Sorry?
No, you were a sprinter in your time. What was it like back then, competition-wise? Because we've got the Usain Bolts of the world running around now. Was it good for you? How was it in regards to who you had to run against?
Well, basically, we only competed in Australia. We had the what we call it, the Australian Championships, and we had the city versus country meets. We had New South Wales versus Victoria versus Queensland, etc. And then we had the occasional overseas visitor. And so really the competition was basically in Australia. We didn't get that opportunity to compete against the Americans and the Europeans and the Asians at that time. Some of our athletes had been invited overseas. I think Gary Holdsworth had been overseas. Peter Norman had been overseas. But in my case, no. I was basically just relying on my home competition to get me to the top level.
So what was it like training-wise compared to what we see the guys do now? Did you have a training partner? What was the coach like?
I had a very, very good coach, a chap by the name of Ken Stewart, and he coached a lot of the top athletes, and he was also a fitness director or a coach for one of the rugby league teams in Sydney. And I was fortunate enough to have this group to train with. And we had a pretty good schedule. We did a lot of weights, a lot of hill running, a lot of Sunday weekend work, where we did a lot of over-distance type work. But bear in mind that we were working then. I was working full-time as a clerk in the Sydney County Council. And basically you went off to training after work. You got home late, had a feed, went to bed, off to work, and then back to training again. So these days they're a little bit more fortunate. They're basically full-time, most of them. If they're not full-time, they get lots of opportunities to compete overseas or internationally. And I think that's something that we missed in those early days, that international exposure. But still, it was a great experience.
No, definitely. Are you able to talk me through, if memory serves you correct, the race on the day competing at the Olympics? What was it like on the day for you?
It was very nerve-wracking. We did the warm-up on the outside stadium, on the warm-up track, and you could see the Harry Jeromes and Bob Hayes and others all warming up, and you could still look at them, and they were quite relaxed, and I was nervous as hell, thinking, well, this is my first big competition in the heat. But I ran pretty well, I guess, in the heat. I drew Bob Hayes, would you believe? And I did fairly well. I finished third with a time of 10.5. So I was pretty confident that I could sort of keep my fitness there and my level of competition at the level where you get through to the next level and so forth. The second round, I should mention too, in that race, Bob Hayes and Tom Robinson actually made the final, obviously. In the second round, I had Figueroa and Maniac. Both of them made the final. And in the semi-final, I drew Bob Hayes again, and he's run 9.9 wind assisted, and I've run 10.3, which at that time was my fastest time over 100 metres. So I was pretty pleased, but unfortunately I only finished fifth in that race, and four of the runners, Bob Hayes, Maniac, Robinson, Schumann, went through into the final. So, finishing fifth against those guys who made the final, I did pretty well. So I must say, when I was lining up in the second round, we were down in the tunnel underneath the stadium, and Bob Hayes came in, and he was in another race next, not mine, but near to me, and he left his shoes out on the track, and one of the other gangs said to him, "Here, take these." So he borrowed a pair of shoes, and he ran and won his second round. So
That's amazing.
Someone could just put on a pair of spikes that he's been given and go out there and not even worry about it.
It's amazing this sort of...
He was a big man, huge man.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
very powerful, his thighs, and he was so strong. I'm only just under 10 stone, in fact around the 10 stone mark at that time, about 72 kilos. So
someone you definitely looked up to then?
Yeah, and Harry Jerome was another one, that the Canadian who had a lot of time for it. I spent a bit of time talking to Harry on the track, the training track, and he was just full of help and trying to give me tips and so forth, and I learned from that. So he was a wonderful guy.
It sounds like you had a good time over there, mate. What were the people like outside of the stadium in regards to how they treated you as an athlete? I'm talking about the fans of the sport and the Japanese people in general. What was it like? What were they like?
Well, it was the first time that the Olympics had been held in Asia. They were fantastic. They got behind us. They were very helpful, and obviously English was a difficult exercise for us because, or for them, not us. And we got by because we had interpreters to help out, but they were so friendly. And you go into shops and they bow to you, and you bow back and they bow to you, and it went on and on and on. We got on very, very well with it. There wasn't the security that you see around, the games today, and I think we were very, very lucky. It was probably the last of the friendly games, put it that way. Melbourne was probably the friendly games, and then Rome, and then, of course, Tokyo. And then when you go to Mexico, they had all sorts of issues over there with the high altitude and so forth. And, I think we were very lucky that Tokyo was one of the friendly games.
It'll be interesting to see if they can bring it back, that friendliness next year, as you're saying. Because, we're going back to Tokyo, and I'm hoping that you're going to make the trip back over.
Look, I'd love to, but I'm not enjoying the best of health at the moment.
Okay.
So travelling is not on the agenda for me at this point.
Well, I'm sure that the memories that you've told me today, that will still live on those, because I'm pretty sure they're using the same tracks that you would have run on, in a sense, the same stadium. So those memories will still be there. So you will be there, which is good.
I'll be watching it.
That's good.
One of the things that really stands out for me over there was I was in the stadium when Betty Cuthbert won, and Julia Moore was in that race. And it was just an incredible performance to see Betty, who was a good mate. We both came from the same athletic club in Sydney. And we did a bit of training together, but not all the time, but we were good mates. And it's really, we kept that association going right up until she passed away. So that was just incredible. And Pammy Kilburn, who was in the hurdles, she got a bronze medal. You know, Pammy and I are good mates today. So, you know, and people like that you keep in contact all your life, which is great. Fantastic.
No, it's good that you build those sorts of bonds during the experiences. Let's have a chat about what athletics is like today in compared to what we had back then. Do you keep up with the what's going on at the moment?
Not as much as I used to. I was very much involved on the board of Victorian Athletics. I'm going back 15, 20 years. And I was president of Athletics International, which is a group of former athletes that had reached the high level. And our plan was to put back into the sport by doing scholarships for young athletes and assisting them. But probably the last 15 years, I sort of dropped away from it. I don't see as much. So I do watch a little bit of it on the television when it comes up, read some of the results. I don't really know who are all the stars out there today, to be very honest with you.
No, that's okay. That's all good. It is. Sorry, go on.
What I will like to say is that I think they've got a wonderful opportunity to really step forward now. They've got the best facilities. They've got great support. They've got a lot of opportunity to travel overseas. And, you know, the institutes in all the states and the Australian Sports Commission these days, I think there's so much offering for them now. If they don't take advantage of it, they're crazy.
No, well, that's true. Yeah, they should be really doing what's being given to them. I've got one last question for you. What sort of words of advice would you do you have to offer for those up and coming athletes that are starting up? Because it does. Well, I'm inspired by speaking to you, knowing what you've achieved many years ago. So, what sort of things could you say to inspire others?
My advice would be never give up. You know, you've got the opportunity ahead of you, and grab it with both hands and give it your best shot. And don't be frightened to move coaches if you find that you need more support. I think that's terribly important. I think lots of time you stick with a coach, and maybe you need to look at going over to someone else to take you to the next level. But stick with the sport, give it your best shot.
Thank you very much, Bob, for joining me for a chat. You were definitely, I have no words in regards to speaking to people of your stature and what you managed to do those many years ago, and you kind of forced a path for athletes today. So yeah, I'm happy to be spreading your word and what your stories are through what I'm doing here. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye now.
Bye. Now, Bob, who was born in 1944, competed only in the Tokyo Games. He was from New South Wales, and he was lucky enough to go over and compete in 3 events: the 100, the 200, and the 4x100. And in those games, his times were outstanding. I couldn't believe when I heard and researched what he had actually achieved over there. So in qualifying, he got 10.5 seconds. With a third there. Quarterfinal gave him 10.4 seconds with a third. And in the semi-final, he got 5th, sadly missing out on going through, but a 10.3. And as we heard in the chat, there was a guy that was getting a 9.9 second run there for 100 metres. That was just outstanding to hear. We then go into his 200 metres. So he goes with a qualifying of 21.3 seconds, a lot better than I could ever do, with a second, and 21.4 seconds was his quarterfinal run with 5th. Now in the 4x100, he competed, and the team ran a 40.6 in qualifying, getting them 4th position. In the semi-final, a 40.1, getting them the 5th. So he had a very good run at the games. Sadly, we didn't get medals. Bob didn't get medals, but that's okay. It was the experience, and as you could hear, he was chuffed to be there. Okay, now let's jump into Trevor. My chat with Trevor Vincent. So Trevor was the first name that I was given and the first person that I was told to chat with. This man is a wealth of knowledge in regards to athletics, not only back then, back today. It was just an amazing chat with Trevor, and I thoroughly enjoyed hearing what he has going on currently, as well as what he experienced in 1964. So here we have my chat with Trevor Vincent. All right, Trevor. First of all, thank you very much for joining me for a chat on my special 1964 Tokyo Olympic Game podcast. I'm very excited to be having you and a bunch of other athletes. So can you tell me how you began as an athlete many years ago?
Many years ago, yeah, that was in the early 1950s, actually. I suppose that I got in. Well, my first running was done when I was in the Boy Scouts, and I competed in the Scout sports, and not really at school except in my last year. But then around that time, 1954, I became aware, of course, of John Landy, and he was an incredible influence on everyone in that era. So I went along and watched John's races, and of course, I was aware of the Commonwealth Games and the Mile of the Century with Roger Bannister. And then soon after that, I got involved with my local club, Glen Huntly, which wasn't that strong in distance running, but they had a few distance runners, and they trained on Caulfield Racecourse, which I lived close to. I lived in Caulfield. And then around that time, the Olympic Games were coming up, so that was a great inspiration for people as well. And the other person that was a great inspiration to me prior to the 56 Olympics was Dave Stevens. Dave broke the world record for 6 miles, and in 1955 he had some incredible races against a team of Hungarians who held world records. So it was sort of a great environment to start running. So that's where it all started, and I kept running, and I didn't start running until I was about 16. And then a few years later, I decided to try the steeplechase in the very early days, and I could handle that reasonably well, but I didn't treat it too seriously. But I did run in the Australian Steeplechase Championship, I think in 1958, and that was the first time that ever had an Australian Steeplechase Championship. There were very rarely was steeples run. In fact, there was only a water jump in Melbourne and Sydney. So it did make it a bit hard to put the event on. So yeah, that's how it started.
That's awesome, mate. So you've had your people that you looked up to, which is awesome, and I'm sure that you've inspired some people as you've gone along yourself. So what was it like leading up to those 64 games and the qualification in regards to standards, and also what you had to do as a person?
Well, I was pretty optimistic in Tokyo, but what had happened prior to that, early 1960s, Ron Clark, who you might have heard of, made a comeback to running after being a champion junior around the time of the 56 Olympics. Ron Clark came back and started running with us at Caulfield Racecourse. So we built up quite a good squad with another guy, Tony Cook, who also came to Tokyo with us. Rod Vanella, who ran in the Commonwealth Games Marathon, got a bronze medal in 1962. So, yeah, we built up quite a squad there. And then, as I say, 1962, the Commonwealth Games were in Perth. And I got more serious about the steeple. And to tell you the truth, I became a bit more serious about the steeple when I realised that Ron Clark wasn't just an ordinary runner, that even though I could match him in the shorter distances, that he was something special.
He scared you into it, did he?
I found that I could do the steeple, and Clarkie wasn't that good over the jump, so I could handle him in cross country if it had a few fences in it. So I mean, I can thank him for the steeplechase. I ran the steeple in Perth in 1962, and I was fortunate to win that. So that gave me a bit more enthusiasm about it. I continued to improve, and prior to the 64 Olympics, there weren't qualifying standards in those days, I think what happened actually in a few times in the Olympics in those days, that without qualifying standards, someone gets picked in the team, say for the 1500 metres, and there's only one person picked in the 5000. Well, then you could put your hand up and try and fill one of the other spots, which I actually did. I'll talk about that in a minute. But so I ran quickly in 1964, early 64, and ran 8:39, which broke the Australian record by about 10 seconds. So, as I say, it wasn't a real popular event. But yeah, so Tokyo came along, and just before Tokyo, in fact, when I was at a training camp in Sydney, I had an Achilles tendon trouble flare up, and I backed off and didn't run steeple for quite a while. But then I was in good form before Tokyo, and in '64 I was ranked in the top 10 in the world for '64. But unfortunately, when I got to Tokyo, my Achilles was, well, my heel. I had a bursitis on the heel, and my Achilles was just no good. In fact, when I was training in Tokyo, leading up to my race, I had to wear a half a size bigger on my right foot with a pad in there, so I didn't aggravate it. So, yeah, Tokyo didn't go so well for me, but I did enjoy the experience, and of course Ron ran really well. Ron got a bronze medal in the 10,000 metres, should have won the gold, but wasn't the best man on the day. And Tokyo was an incredible time because the winner of the marathon there, Abibi Bakula, had already won in Tokyo, in Rome, in 1960. So to see him in action, to see him finish the race, so I watched Ron ran the marathon and finished 8th. Tony ran and finished. Bob Vagg, another Australian. We had 3 in the marathon. But what I was going to say, as far as the marathon, well, as far as running there was concerned, I was picked in the steeple, and in the marathon only Tony Cook was picked. So a few of us put our hand up for the vacant spots in the marathon, and put his hand up, so did L.B. Thomas, and so did I. Oh, the other one picked was, Bob Vagg and Tony Cook, but they preferred Ron. I don't know why, but anyway, Ron got preferred over me in the marathon, so I didn't get to run that, but I was that close to running the Olympic marathon. But that was an incredible experience, Tokyo.
And what was it like, other than seeing people that you idolise in a sense run as well, but what was it like as a town to compete in? We are coming up to 2020. I'm hoping that you're heading over to have a look.
Well, I did apply for tickets, but I've changed my mind and I'm probably not going now. But you never know, something might happen at the last moment. But at this stage, I'm probably not going. I'd like to go. But yeah, look, we'd go out and go training on the roads, and people clapped. It was an incredible environment. They love their running over there. They certainly love distance running, and the Japanese these days are very, very strong in distance running. So it was a great environment to run in. We hadn't done any or much overseas travel at that stage. The furthest I'd been was to race in New Zealand a few times, and I did run in Indonesia, but other than that, to go to Tokyo was just an incredible thrill. As I say, the people were really supportive, and it was great to go out on the road and have people clapping you, and we'd go out and do, road runs out through Tokyo. It was just a great environment. We had a fairly large team there, and we covered most events. I suppose that, Clarkey was the most successful. Well, we had, of course, Betty Cuthbert was on the team, and Betty won the 400 metres. That was great to see her there. I can remember seeing Betty running in Melbourne in '56 and winning 100 and 200, and there was I. I was a spectator, 17 or 18 years old at Melbourne '56, and there I was. I couldn't, imagine that would have happened, but I was on the same team as Betty in Tokyo. Same with Dawn Fraser, who won in Melbourne and was a sort of a superstar of Australian sport, and there I was on the same team as her.
So would you say you were starstruck as well? Were you?
Hey?
You were starstruck as well, were you?
Oh well, no, sort of. Yeah. But no, I think the one that really the most exciting people that I found there were Abibi Bakula in the marathon, Peter Snell, who actually from New Zealand, who absolutely dominated the 800 and 1500. And it was he'd already run the 800 in Rome, but to come back and win the double and win it quite easily, he actually dominated both events. So it was great to see him there. I got to know, I raced Peter a little bit in New Zealand, and he was one of the greatest athletes I've seen. And as I say, he just dominated in Tokyo. There was no one could get near him. In fact, in the 1500, his fellow New Zealander, John Davies, John led early, and then Peter ran the race sort of to try and help John get a medal. So he went to he sort of just ran the perfect race that probably suited John as well, and John finished up getting a bronze medal. So New Zealand had a great games. They'd already had a great games in Tokyo, of course, in Rome, with Barry McGee, who got a medal in the friendship with the New Zealanders. And I already knew the English runner, Morris Herriot, who got second in the steeple in Tokyo. He was second to me in Perth in 1962. And while he went on with it a bit, I just wasn't able to produce the goods on the day.
No.
Yeah, no, Tokyo was an incredible environment. It was before, all this, the days, all the social media and all that sort of stuff. So I was still writing letters home. It was quite different. But, Tokyo was just a great environment. I'm sure it'll be the same again next year.
Oh, definitely. They seem like very understanding people and very accepting people, which is good. And that's what we like to see in those sorts of events.
That's right.
Where did your career continue from Tokyo then?
Well, I'd had that Achilles tendon problem, but the team doctor in Tokyo, Howard Toyne, who was an excellent sports doctor, he told me that he thought that if he gave me a cortisone injection, it would probably help me, but he wasn't keen to do it so close to the race. So he didn't do that, and so as I say, the race didn't go that well. But when I came home, I went and saw him within a week of getting back from Tokyo, and he gave me a cortisone injection, and the Achilles recovered, and I ran quite well. In fact, I ran a steeple within about 2 or 3 weeks of getting back, and I beat one of the Americans who made the final in Tokyo. So it just wasn't my day. But I kept running, and in 1966 I was going very well, still running well at steeple and mile. I enjoyed the mile race, I must say. But coming up to 1966 Jamaica, I had a little bit of trouble early in the year with the Achilles again, the bursitis, so I backed off and didn't run a steeple for quite a while. But then we had a meet in March, I think, in 1966, so that was the time that I thought I'd have a go at it, and I did. And with my mate Ian Blackwood, who also made the team for Perth in 62, but not Tokyo 64, we had a neck-and-neck race, and on the last water jump when we were together, I landed and my Achilles tendon snapped.
Oh.
So that wasn't great. That put an end to me. I finished up in hospital that night, and I had to have the Achilles repaired. It was totally torn. Had the Achilles repaired. Ian went over to Jamaica, and he ran quite well there. In fact, in the race that I snapped my Achilles in, Ian broke my Australian record. So I'd love to know what might have happened if I'd kept going. But after that injury, I kept running. I got back into action, and I didn't run another steeple, unfortunately, but I still kept going and ran very well, and concentrated on running flat and cross country, which I enjoyed cross country. I ran a mile in 4:01.7 in the very early 60s in New Zealand in a race with Peter Snell and John Davies, and wasn't far behind them, but that was my fastest time. And one of my regrets is that I didn't get the opportunity to run another mile in a decent field. But most of the meets I ran after that I ran the steeple, so I didn't get a chance to run the mile. But I did love running the mile races. I won an Australian title once, and I liked 3 mile. I liked running cross country, and we raced against the New Zealanders in cross country quite a bit. So Tokyo was probably the highlight, not so much from my own results, but from all of the great enjoyment we got out of the trip, the 2 incredible races we saw, the enthusiasm of the people, which, as I say, the Japanese people were just so incredible at the stadium, and also out in the roads and wherever you go around town. They were very welcoming, and they'd always want to shake your hand. So it's a great experience, and I'd love to go back next year. I'm sure it'll be a great game. So I think they're using the same stadium next year.
That's amazing, isn't it? 50 plus years on.
Yep. No. So I mean, in our early days, we didn't have the proper tracks. So it was the first time I'd seen. Well, in Tokyo, it was even a cinder track. So things changed after that. But the times, Clarkie's race in Tokyo was something memorable. I'm sure we'll see some memorable races from the Australians over there now. We've got some terrific potential. Just talking about distance running, we've got some great potential in marathon. We've got a number of guys running around 2:10, and 1500 and 5,000 metres, male and female, looking very good. The other one I was going to mention in Tokyo who ran really well was Judy Pollock. Judy got third behind Betty Cuthbert in the 400 metres. So, yeah, we had a great games over there.
That's amazing, mate. It's amazing to be sitting here and speaking to yourself about what you achieved and what you were a part of many years ago. Now, you seem like a very scholared man in regards to athletics and knowing what's going on. You do follow what happens now, am I correct?
Yeah, I know. I'm right up with it now. As you're probably aware, I've started a Facebook site a couple of years ago, and I called it Australian Distance Running Nostalgia. So I've got a couple of thousand followers on that now, and I'm always... it's always the source of lots of interest, and wherever I go, people tell me how much they enjoy watching it. So, yeah, I'm a real fan of distance running, I've got to say. I can put up with the other events, but I do prefer distance running. Marathon, right from anything up distance, 800 right up to the marathon. Not even big on ultra running, but I can understand it, and mountain running. But they're things I've never tried. But, so I'm a great follower of distance running, and I've got most of my friends, or most of my involvement is still in athletics and still in distance running. Coach a few athletes, got quite a few promising runners. Haven't turned out any Olympic champions yet, but you never know. There's Australia's very strong, as I say, and we're looking very good for Tokyo. And let's hope we can pick up a medal or two there.
No, definitely, you're correct there. I interviewed like a lot of athletes, and I hope that we can interview them in 50 years' time, and they have the exact same feelings that you do, and you remember everything, which is exciting as well.
50 years ago, it's incredible. 55. What is it? 56 years ago.
Definitely, yeah, it is amazing, and it's quite interesting how they chose to go back to Tokyo. How they're reusing places in a sense. But hey, I've got one question for you before we let you go. You did mention to me before that you're a bike fan, a race fan, so we don't want to let you miss out on the Tour de France.
That's all right. I'm watching it now with the sound turned down.
That's okay, mate. That question I want to ask you is, where do you see athletics heading in the future?
Good. Yeah, I think that we're seeing more athletes become professional or full-time, and that wasn't the case in our day. And that's probably, contributes towards the faster times. And, the ability, people can just afford to travel the world, get more opportunities to race. I mean, in our day, we'd go to work, we had our families, we'd go on the way home from work, working 40-hour week or close to it. On the way home, we'd stop and do our run and then go home, do our long runs on the weekend. So there wasn't much spare time. It's a little bit better these days with the time that they've got. I can see, back in 1954, who would have dreamt that someone run a mile in close to 3:40? And in those days, we were looking at someone to run somewhere close to 4 minutes for the mile. And the marathon, the other person that I ran a lot with in the 60s was Derek Clayton, and Derek took the world record down from 2:12 to 2:09, then to 2:08, and we could just, that was just, in fact, people didn't believe it, but now, of course, they're trying to run 2 hours for a marathon, and even without being a stage race, there's been a 2:01 run, 2:01 and a half, I think, for a marathon. So I can see there's no limits, but you'd think that they might only be able to break it by a second or two, but you never know. Someone might come out soon and run, a steeple the steeple record's now 8 or 7:52. That was the world record in my day was 8:30. So I can see lots of improvement, and particularly I think in the women's events too. We're seeing great improvement in the women's distance running. So. And I think that'll continue, and I think Australia will be right up there in that. We've got some terrific potential and some great athletes. So, I think
Catriona,
sponsorship and all that. Yep, sorry.
No, you're right. Sorry, mate. I was just going to mention her name, Catriona Bicep, last night. She broke that 40-year-old record in the 800.
That's right. Yeah, I know Charlene's a good friend of mine, and it was great to see that happen, but it's lasted for a long time, and she only beat it by 0.2 of a second, so that's all you've got to do, but I can see that happening. the world record for, I know they don't run it much, but the women's mile record was broken just recently, and that was standing, that was around for 20, 25 years, the women's record for the mile, and now that got broken this year. So you never know. There's all sorts of records can be broken, and there's more scope for it, of course, in distance running. You're not going to break a sprint record by seconds, but more like hundreds. So
yes, definitely. No, well, thank you very much for joining me today, mate, for a chat. And I appreciate your time. And of course, what you did those many years ago as an athlete, paving the way for us to do what we do now.
Thanks, Jordan. No worries.
Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day and the bike ride.
Okay. Righto. Bye.
See ya. Trevor Vincent, born in 1938, competed in the 3,000 steeplechase in the Tokyo Games in 1964. He ran in qualifying an 8-minute 58.8 in 8th, and as he said, he had his issue with his Achilles, but he bounced back with an amazing time there, and just an outstanding man to talk with. And hear from. He had done his country proud and done himself proud as well, as we heard. The man definitely knows his stuff. I was actually considering giving my podcast to him because he knows just that little bit more. I just loved doing what I did in regards to speaking to these people that competed in the 1964 Games. But we're not over yet. We've still got a part 2. So tune in when I release on Sunday the next episode. I'm excited for this one as I speak to 2 amazing athletes. But hey, you know what we're all about. You'll have to wait to see who's next. And for all you keen-eared people out there, you may have wondered that my intro changed. I have actually changed for the next 2 episodes the intro from what was the Los Angeles Games fanfare to the Tokyo 1964 fanfare. So I hope you enjoy that one there. But yes, join me next time. Who knows who we're going to get. Thank you for listening to another episode of 2020 Vision. If you want to find us elsewhere, go to Podbean, YouTube, or Spotify and type in 2020 Vision. You can also find us on Facebook. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you again next week.